There was a point where I almost gave up on my dreams, not just one dream, but several of them at the same time. The gym, YouTube, rock climbing, all things I genuinely wanted to become good at, all things I could picture myself doing years from now. And for a while, I actually believed I could make them happen. I would imagine myself getting stronger in the gym, building a YouTube channel that people actually cared about, becoming genuinely good at rock climbing, and eventually looking back at the person I was today and realizing how far I'd come. But then reality started setting in. Progress was slower than I expected. Some days I felt like I was improving, and other days it felt like I had made absolutely no progress at all. You upload a video and barely anyone watches it. You go to the gym and realize you're nowhere near as strong as you want to be. You try a climbing route and can't finish it even though you've attempted it over and over again. Eventually, you start wondering whether you're actually getting anywhere. And that's when the thought starts creeping in, maybe I should just give up on these dreams. The scary thing about giving up is that it doesn't usually feel dramatic. It's not some huge moment where you throw everything away and announce that you're done. It's much quieter than that. You simply stop showing up. Maybe you miss one day at the gym because you don't feel motivated. Then you miss another. You tell yourself you'll go next week. With YouTube, maybe you spend hours working on a video, upload it, and see almost no views. Eventually you start thinking, why am I spending all this time editing if nobody is watching? So you stop making videos. With rock climbing, maybe you keep failing the same route. Eventually you start thinking, maybe I'm just not naturally good at this. And instead of trying again, you decide it's probably not for you. None of those decisions feel like giving up when they happen. They just feel like taking a break. But if the break keeps getting longer, eventually you realize you've walked away from something you once cared about. I think that's what makes dreams so difficult. We love the idea of the destination, but we don't always love the journey required to reach it. We imagine having the strong body, but not the months of training that come before it. We imagine having a successful YouTube channel, but not the videos that get 10 views. We imagine climbing difficult routes, but not falling off the same route 20 times while trying to figure out what you're doing wrong. We want the result, but we don't always want the boring middle. And unfortunately, the boring middle is where almost all progress happens. YouTube taught me this especially well. When you first start creating, it's easy to imagine your videos getting thousands or even millions of views. You picture people commenting, subscribing, sharing your videos, and recognizing your channel. But then you upload your first video and reality hits. Maybe it gets a handful of views. Maybe the thumbnail isn't good enough. Maybe the title doesn't work. Maybe people click away after 30 seconds. And suddenly you have to make a decision. Are you going to interpret those results as proof that you aren't capable of doing YouTube? Or are you going to interpret them as feedback? Because those are two completely different mindsets. If you look at a low view video and say, I'm terrible at this, you've turned a result into an identity. But if you say, okay, that didn't work, what can I improve? You've turned failure into information. The same thing happens in the gym. You walk in and see people lifting weights you can't lift. You see someone who has clearly been training for years and compare them to yourself after you've only been going for a fraction of that time. Suddenly your own progress doesn't feel impressive anymore. You forget that you started somewhere. You forget that the person you're comparing yourself to probably went through the exact same stage you're going through now. They had weak days, they had bad workouts, they had periods where they didn't feel like going, they had exercises they couldn't do. But you don't see those moments when you look at them. You only see the result, and comparing your beginning to someone else's years of work is one of the fastest ways to make yourself feel like you're failing. Rock climbing is another perfect example. There's something humbling about climbing because the wall doesn't care how badly you want to succeed. You can look at a route and think, I should be able to do this, and then immediately discover that you can't. Maybe your grip gives out. Maybe you don't know where to place your feet. Maybe you reach a point where you simply don't know what to do next, and for a while that can be frustrating. You start thinking that you're just not built for it, but that's actually the entire point. Every failed attempt teaches you something. You learn where you lose your balance, you learn which movements don't work, you learn how to position yourself differently. Eventually, something that seemed impossible becomes slightly less impossible, and then one day you finish it. That's what progress actually looks like. It isn't always a straight line upward. Sometimes you improve, then get worse. Sometimes you work hard for weeks and don't notice anything. Sometimes you have an incredible day and then have 3 terrible ones. Sometimes you feel like you're moving backward, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. A lot of growth happens underneath the surface before you can actually see the results. And I think that's where I almost made my biggest mistake. I was judging my dreams based on the results I could see right now. If YouTube wasn't growing quickly enough, I thought maybe I wasn't meant to be a creator. If I wasn't getting stronger quickly enough, I thought maybe I wasn't making enough progress in the gym. If I couldn't climb a route, I thought maybe I wasn't good enough to become the climber I wanted to be. I was looking at the present and using it to predict the entire future, but you can't do that. You can't look at the first chapter of something and decide how the story ends. Imagine watching a movie for 20 minutes and deciding the main character is never going to accomplish anything because they're struggling at the beginning. It would make no sense. Yet that's exactly what we do to ourselves. We experience a few months of difficulty and suddenly decide that our entire dream is impossible. We forget that we're still at the beginning, and maybe you're doing the same thing right now. Maybe there's something you've wanted to accomplish for a long time. Maybe you want to get stronger. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel. Maybe you want to become good at a sport, learn an instrument, build something, or master a skill, and you've tried before. Maybe you've failed before, maybe you've already stopped once or twice, and now you're wondering if you should even bother starting again. I want you to understand something. Starting again doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes you lose motivation. Sometimes you become interested in something else for a while. Sometimes you simply need a break. That's okay. The problem isn't taking a break. The problem is convincing yourself that because you stopped once, you can never start again. You can go back to the gym. You can make another video. You can walk into the climbing gym again. You can pick up the dream you abandoned, and you don't have to start where you left off. You can start wherever you are. Maybe your first YouTube video back gets 10 views. Make another one. Maybe your first workout back feels terrible. Go again. Maybe you can't climb the route you wanted. Try a different route, learn something, and come back later. The goal isn't to prove that you're already good enough. The goal is to become better than you were yesterday. Because eventually something changes when you refuse to quit permanently. You stop needing every day to feel successful. You start becoming comfortable with being a beginner. You stop expecting instant results. You realize that the people who seem naturally talented are often just people who stayed around long enough to become good. And that's the part nobody sees. Nobody sees the hundreds of ordinary workouts behind the strength. Nobody sees the videos that never got views behind the successful channel. Nobody sees the failed climbing attempts behind the difficult route someone eventually completes. They only see the finished product, but you know what happened. You remember every time you wanted to quit. You remember every time you thought you weren't good enough. You remember every time you wondered whether any of it was worth it. And that's exactly why continuing matters. Because imagine giving up now and then looking back 5 years later. Imagine wondering what your YouTube channel could have become if you kept uploading. Imagine wondering how strong you could have become if you kept training. Imagine wondering what level you could have reached in climbing if you kept showing up. You wouldn't know. And sometimes not knowing is harder than failing. Failure gives you an answer. Giving up gives you a question. What could I have become if I had kept going? That's the question I don't want to spend my life asking. I don't want to look back years from now and wonder whether I could have built the channel I dreamed about. I don't want to wonder how strong I could have become. I don't want to wonder how far I could have climbed. I want to find out, and that's what stopped me from giving up on my dreams. I realized I don't need proof that I'll succeed. I just need a reason to keep trying. I don't know exactly where YouTube will take me. I don't know exactly how strong I'll become. I don't know how far I'll eventually get in rock climbing. But I know one thing for certain. If I completely give up, I'll never find out. So maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're tired of trying. Maybe you've been working towards something and you're starting to wonder whether it's worth it. Maybe you feel like everyone else is progressing while you're standing still. Don't let one frustrating season convince you that your entire dream is impossible. Take a break if you need one. Change your strategy if something isn't working. Learn something new. Start smaller. Give yourself time. But if the dream still matters to you, don't bury it just because the beginning was harder than you expected. Go back to it. Make the next video. Do the next workout. Try the next climb. You don't have to know whether you'll succeed 5 years from now. You just have to decide that you're not going to let today's doubts decide what you're capable of becoming. Because maybe the person you're trying to become is closer than you think. Maybe you're not failing. Maybe you're just in the part of the story where the progress isn't visible yet. And that's something I keep having to remind myself whenever I feel like I'm not progressing fast enough. The hardest part isn't always the physical effort. Sometimes the hardest part is continuing to believe in a version of yourself that you haven't become yet. It's easy to believe in yourself after you've already accomplished something. It's easy to look at a successful YouTuber and say, of course they were going to make it. It's easy to look at someone who is incredibly strong and assume they were always that way. It's easy to watch an experienced climber complete a difficult route and forget that there was once a time when they couldn't even imagine doing it. But when you're at the beginning, you don't have that evidence. You have to believe before you have proof, and that's incredibly difficult. There were times with YouTube where I would sit there looking at my videos and wondering why I was even doing it. You spend hours writing a script, recording, editing, finding music, making a thumbnail, choosing a title, and finally uploading everything. Then you wait and you refresh the page. Maybe a few people watched it, maybe almost nobody did, and after all that work, it's easy to think, was that really worth it? You start imagining all the other things you could have done with those hours. You could have played games, you could have watched something. You could have just relaxed, and that's when your brain starts offering you an easy solution. Stop, don't make another video. Nobody cares anyway. But the problem with that thought is that it only looks at the reward you're getting right now. It doesn't consider what happens if you continue for another year. It doesn't consider the skills you're building every time you edit. It doesn't consider that every bad thumbnail teaches you something. Every low-performing video gives you information. Every time you write a script, you become better at writing. Every time you edit, you become faster. Every time you upload, you understand the platform a little more. You might not see the result in views immediately, but you're becoming a different creator with every video you make. The same thing happens in the gym. You don't become stronger because of one workout. You become stronger because of hundreds of workouts that individually don't seem that important. Nobody walks into a gym on Monday and walks out on Friday as a completely different person. The changes happen so slowly that you often don't notice them. That's why consistency can feel pointless. You don't get a reward every time you show up. Nobody hands you a trophy because you trained when you didn't feel like it. Most of the time, it's just you doing the work and going home. But that's exactly what makes consistency so powerful. You're teaching yourself that you can keep promises to yourself. That's bigger than any single workout. Because once you prove to yourself that you can say, I'm going to do this, and then actually do it, you start building confidence that doesn't come from motivation or compliments. It comes from evidence. You know you can trust yourself because you've watched yourself follow through. And I think rock climbing taught me a completely different version of the same lesson. In climbing, sometimes the route isn't difficult because you're weak. Sometimes you simply don't understand it yet. You look at the wall and see a sequence of movements that doesn't make sense. You try something, fail, come back down, and watch someone else climb it. Suddenly you notice something they did differently. Maybe they positioned their foot in a way you hadn't considered. Maybe they used a hold differently. Maybe they shifted their weight before reaching for the next move. Then you try again, and suddenly you get one move further. That's such a small victory that someone watching might not even notice, but you notice, because you know exactly how many times you failed before getting there, and those tiny victories are what keep dreams alive. Not every victory is a million views. Sometimes victory is getting one more subscriber than yesterday. Sometimes it's adding another little bit of weight to your workout. Sometimes it's reaching a hold you've never reached before. Sometimes it's simply showing up when you seriously considered staying home. Those moments don't look impressive from the outside, but they matter because they're proof that you're moving. And maybe we have the wrong idea about what success is supposed to feel like. We imagine success as this constant feeling of excitement, confidence, and progress. But most of the time, success probably feels incredibly ordinary while you're experiencing it. It's waking up and doing the thing again. It's uploading another video. It's going to the gym when you would rather stay home. It's attempting a route you've already failed. It's studying another technique. It's practicing another skill. There's nothing cinematic about it until you look back. Then suddenly all those ordinary days become the reason you became someone different. That's why I don't want to chase motivation anymore. Motivation is great when it's there, but I don't want my dreams to depend on whether I feel inspired on a random Tuesday. There are going to be days when I don't want to edit. There are going to be days when I don't feel like training. There are going to be days when climbing feels frustrating. That's normal. The goal isn't to eliminate those days. The goal is to stop allowing those days to make decisions for me. Because if I only work toward my dreams when everything feels good, I'm not really committed to the dream. I'm committed to the feeling, and feelings change. One day you're incredibly motivated. The next day you're exhausted. One week you feel unstoppable. The next week you question everything. Your goals can't depend entirely on which version of yourself wakes up that morning. Sometimes you have to let discipline carry you when motivation isn't strong enough. And discipline doesn't mean destroying yourself or forcing yourself to work every second of every day. It means understanding what actually matters to you and continuing to make reasonable progress even when the excitement disappears. That's something I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out how to balance YouTube with everything else. I'm still figuring out how to train consistently without becoming obsessed with results. I'm still figuring out how to improve at climbing without getting frustrated every time I fail. I'm not standing here pretending I've figured everything out. I'm still at the beginning, and maybe that's the most important thing I could tell you. You don't need to be an expert before you take your dreams seriously. You don't need thousands of subscribers before you call yourself a creator. You don't need to be incredibly strong before you take the gym seriously. You don't need to climb the hardest routes before you consider yourself a climber. You become those things by doing them. The identity comes from the actions. Every time I make another video, I'm becoming more of a creator. Every time I train, I'm becoming stronger. Every time I climb, I'm becoming a better climber. And those identities aren't created by one massive achievement. They're created by repetition. So when I feel like giving up, I try to remember that I'm not just deciding whether to do something today. I'm deciding what kind of person I'm becoming, and sometimes that thought is enough to make me continue. Not because I suddenly feel motivated, not because I suddenly believe I'm guaranteed to succeed, but because I know that the person I want to become is built through the choices I make when nobody is watching. And that's where the real battle happens, not on the YouTube dashboard, not under the barbell, not halfway up a climbing wall. The real battle happens in your head when you have every reason to stop, and you have to decide whether you're going to take one more step anyway. So if you've ever felt like giving up on something you once cared about, I want you to remember this. You don't have to have everything figured out today. You don't have to know whether your YouTube channel will become successful, how strong you'll eventually become, or how far you'll make it in rock climbing. You just have to give yourself the chance to find out. There will be videos that get almost no views. There will be workouts where you feel weaker than you did the week before. There will be climbing routes that completely shut you down. There will be days when you question whether any of this is worth it, but those moments don't decide your future. What you do after them does. Maybe you need to slow down, maybe you need to change your approach, maybe you need to take a few days to rest. That's okay. Resting isn't giving up, failing isn't giving up, starting over isn't giving up. Giving up is deciding that your current circumstances are permanent and refusing to give yourself another chance. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to look back years from now and wonder what my life could have been if I had just kept going a little longer. I want to find out, I want to see what happens if I keep making videos, keep training, keep climbing, keep learning, and keep showing up even when the results aren't obvious. And maybe you should do the same with whatever dream you've been thinking about lately. You don't need to promise yourself that you'll never struggle again. You don't need to promise that you'll never want to quit. Just promise yourself that wanting to quit won't automatically mean you actually will, because the version of you you're dreaming about doesn't appear overnight. They're built slowly through thousands of ordinary decisions that nobody else sees. So make the next decision count, make the next video, take the next step, try the next climb, show up for the next workout. Your dream doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to keep giving it a chance.